Good morning, everyone. Very warm welcome from RIXC Gallery in Riga. I welcome you here in the gallery and also our participants outside that are connected with us via Zoom. We have some more participants coming in. Yes. I also want to say many cordial thanks to Raisa and her team for conceptualizing, hosting, and organizing this conference and having us here with you. Yesterday, we had a fantastic first day on Deep Europe, and today the conference will all be about nature cultures, and it will be about a beginning. We have also an amazing lineup of speakers today. We will have 5 sessions today. And the morning session is particularly on nature cultures. When you think about nature cultures, it's a compound of 2 words, and it brings closely together different semantic strands to be followed by artists and scientists and critical thought lovers, thought lines on artistic trajectories between natures and cultures, cultures of nature, cultures with nature, culture based on nature, new visions and relations between nature culture and human cultures, and more than human cultures. So today's session is structured in 5 panels. In the afternoon session, we have 2 parallel breakout sessions about more than human, about the topic of terrestrial coexistence, about new ecosophies, about ecofeminism and sociological justices. And this first panel, as I said, is all about a beginning, all about a start. It is about a local and a digital beginning called NAIA. Now, what is NAIA? NAIA has a garden, and NAIA has a website, naia.center. NAIA can be found on Instagram, and NAIA participants will be in discussion today with us. NAIA seeks attention, and NAIA is created by humans. So NAIA is about art, art to come, to emerge, about art which cares about intelligences, about knowledge, about understanding, about tackling current problems, of course. It's about media art, technological tools, tools per se. And it cares about more than human intelligences. It cares about artificial intelligences, but in the sense of nature culture. So it cares about a particular art, which can be encompassed as naturally artificial intelligence is art. So this is NAIA. NAIA is an association which has just been founded this early summer in Carlsware in Germany. And it brings together people who are interested in art, who are artists, young artists, experienced artists, curators, who share a certain interest in their outlook onto the future that can be concerned with these keywords of naturally artificial intelligence is art. So what are these people doing in Karlsruhe? They want to let it emerge. They want to let everyone connect and share and entice each other and question each other on the current problems and issues that art can make a change. And of course, we know that art and new enterprises, artistic enterprises usually start in a kitchen, right? But we thought that before we get to the kitchen, we start in a garden. So today we will also start with exploring the garden. But let me tell you a little bit about NAIA Association. We endeavor to speculate, to envision nature cultures as an artistic, experimental, and practical and theoretical habitat, which aims at including the non-human, of course, or as we may call it tentatively, that we like to think towards more than human futures. Our mission is, of course, it has to grow. It's just in the beginning, to use techno-cultural tools to reflect upon and raise an awareness of the ongoing transformations in nature, culture, and society. We would like to support on a local level art creation, research, and other creative interdisciplinary practices that are seeking to shape new context zones between art and science, nature and technology, sustainable businesses as well, and social engagement in the 21st century. So we seek and endeavor to become a viable ecosystemic structure in Karlsruhe and beyond, being connected through different kinds of digital tools. and then become intertwined and have a resonating surrounding environment. But why is this conference also called Splintered Realities? Now, we are used to have the metaphors of being entangled, being in a holobiontic body all together with microbes, micro and plants of different strands. So, and we were thinking, now let's try today another metaphor, the splinters. Yeah, when we think about splinters, we think about forces that brought about the splinters and the wish behind it that everything was whole and everything will be whole and everything can be whole, can be holistic, right? But then yesterday we had this fantastic look back into the deep media art history, and it felt like also taking out splinters, discovering, rediscovering splinters and pulling them out and looking at its value and having stories about it, telling about more about, well, being knowledgeable. So splinters belong to archaeology and the past, of course, and we dig out things and we try to get more knowledge about it, but also splinters, just imagine, about the present and the future, because our realities, they are not just one reality. We have to see where we can, you know, link together. There are so many realities we have to share. So let's think about splinters, the valuable splinters, and how we can connect. So, and coming back to NAIA, our first speaker will be Eva Maria Lopez, and she will be talking about the garden and natural intelligence. Yeah, Eva, can you please come? The Zoom mic is yours. Eva is an artist based in Paris and Karlsruhe, and she works with materials, natural materials, and is working about across different genres with digital tools and botanical materials. She is specialized in fine observation practices and experimenting printing and image techniques. And what she does is she also sets up a studio on a mountaintop as well as at sea level and invites the high noon sun to work with her.
Thank you very much for the introduction and yeah, and also explaining about NAIA. Well, yes, welcome. Very happy to be here. I will talk about the splinter nature culture, and we're going to have a look about the connection between humans and nature. And I will go back to the 18th century, where there have been a lot of breaks, a lot of changes. Here you see, well, the garden of Versailles in Paris, where you can see that nature was used kind as a demonstration of power. The garden or the park is very huge, and it's very clear defined what kind of plants can grow and where they can grow. So, and it had to be ornamental. So everything was like, yeah, very clear defined. Originally, this kind of ornamented garden is coming from the Persians, but in their case, it was smaller and it was supposed to be paradise. But this kind of garden doesn't look like paradise, it looks like power. So, in the same century, Carl von Linné did the nomenclature of the plant names, because it was also the time of the big explorer like Humboldt and other explorer, and they claimed to discover plants, but the plants have been discovered already by the indigenous people, but they also claimed it to give them a new name. For example, the tea plant, it's called camellia, not chai, like there's a common name in China or in Asia. Now it's camellia, because the botanist Camel wanted to give the name to this plant. So no, yeah. The other thing is that most names, botanical names, are ending with IA, so it's supposed to be feminine, but 99%, if botanists gave the name to plants, was men. So there is only a few women, maybe 10 or something. And so it's also taking power about plants, taking power about other countries. It's a very typical, significant thing about colonization. Here's a work about that for my garden, and I call it the Nisters in my garden, die Herren in mein Garten, because yeah, they're all named after different kind of botanists. So you have Mr. Forsyth, William Kerr, Travis Kent, and so on. So now the big change in the 18th century is the French Revolution. They wanted to get rid of this structure, and they wanted to honor nature. They even did a calendar where it was done after the time of seasons in nature. And during 1793 and 94, they kind of cleared up churches, secularized them, and they built mountains of soil into it. So they really put the soil into the church and gave people the possibility to walk up or to put sculptures on. And I think it was very revolutionary. It's not very well known in history, because in French Revolution, they always say about terror, but they always had the nature in mind. For example, if you had to cut a tree, you had to replant a new tree. And that's, for our days, very revolutionary. That's a kind of reinterpretation. I put photos of churches in Paris, which have been impacted. And then I was thinking, where can we find soil in our nowadays, in our urban structure? And actually, you can only find it when there's a construction site, because then you have suddenly a pile of earth in the street or in a park. Otherwise, you don't have really access to pure soil. That's this, it's called the cult of the higher season, higher being. And they're also called temple. And I think this is kind of double exposure. We really have the transmission of church into temple of nature. Humboldt also already said there that we have to be careful about deforestation, because it's going to change the climate, it's going to change the soil, the erosion. But well, sometimes I have the impression that everything is lost. The connection between the society and nature, it's still not in a good shape, as you can see here. This is called a stone garden. I'm working on this kind of series because here you really can see this disconnection. You can see that people don't like plants, and they see plants if they're growing in the garden, which are not belonging there, as a weed, you know. And I can't understand this kind of lack of responsibility if you're owning a piece of earth and then you're treating it like that. Because there is no biodiversity. These places are heating up to 70 degrees in summer. And I've seen gardens like that having air conditioning for the house, you know, in the garden, because of course they're suffering of the heat, you know. But for me, it's really not understandable how you can do something like that. And the project is sponsored by the German state, and we are going to do digital vegetalization of this kind of gardens. And it's also interesting to talk to these people, because they don't understand why you're taking photos, like why you're interested in, and you don't have to say that you don't like it, because otherwise you get in trouble. And say, oh, but it's so beautiful, have a look, and everything is so tidy and accurate. So yeah. Yeah, and now talking about plants that should not supposed to grow somewhere, I come to natural intelligence. That's a series called We Resist. It's a series about plants who developed a resistance against herbicides, especially against glyphosate. And I started the series when I had a look at cereal fields and I saw poppy flowers. And then I said, oh, maybe it's an organic field. And then I had a closer look, and no, it was not an organic field. It was treated by herbicides, but the poppy survived. And due to my former studies in agriculture, I had a closer look. And then I realized that there had been able to found a resistance. They changed their genetic pool, and they have been able to resist the glyphosate. Yeah, and you can see how poorly the vegetation is in this kind of monoculture. It's a cereal plant. And when I studied agriculture, actually, things about natural intelligence in plants or connection between plants, it was like a fairy tale. Nobody wanted to hear about that. Even there have been some scientists in the 60s already worked on that. Nowadays it's different, but there it was like, oh yeah, go, it's esoteric, it's not real, because they couldn't prove it. Now it changed, fortunately. So this is a short abstract about glyphosate. I think you mostly might know it. In Germany, 40% of the agriculture surface is treated with glyphosate. So you can imagine, and the impact is known for human very well. It can cause cancer. But it's not only agriculture, it's also cities, communities. Next time you're taking a train and you have a look, you will see some resistant plants. And everything is, a lot of companies are providing GMO plants. They have the artificial modification to be resistant against glyphosate. The marketing is about, we are changing the plants to get more, to feed the world. But in reality, it's more about having the plants resistance against herbicides, so you can treat the plants and that's no problem. Wow. The number of herbicide-resistant plants is increasing. And as you can see, United States, China, and Australia, and France. There's a lot of research going on because for the agrochemical companies, these resistant plants are called super or monster weeds. It's a danger because they can get rid of it. Sometimes they're using herbicide cocktails of 10 different herbicides for one field. And there's multi-resistant plants, for example, now, which are not able to get killed. So this is about poppy. Wow. Yeah, my work is about resist. I wanted to say V for plants, to have some non-human aspect. And this, for example, research about Equisetum avense or field horsetail. It's one of the oldest plants in the world. And so for me, it's no wonder that it survived, for forever. It will survive us. And it has so many different aspects. So biodynamic farming, historical, and also as medicine. The photos, I took the plants from the original place, and then I put it in front of a white paper and put a photo. And so I wanted to have the shadow, which is also reference to this herbariums from the explorer from the 18th century. And also to say, okay, there's a shadow. So there's always two meanings. So for some people, it's a super weed. For some people, it's a medical plant. So there are always different layers in a plant. Here you can see the Equisetum on a rail track, and you can see it was treated and it came back. Here's a poppy. This, maybe it's growing all over in cities too. Chamomile. Yeah, and this was part of this project. And then I wanted to work really with a garden. And I got the invitation to make a project in Bourges at the exhibition Where. Here you can see it. And here you can see also the reference to the Baroque garden from Versailles, which was the inspiration for the design. It's all done of herbicide-resistant plants. Yeah, here you have the reference. Well, and the logos are coming from a project which was before. It's called I Never Promised You a Green Garden. Because growing up in farm, studying agriculture, it was for me always known this kind of logos, growth for better world, science for better life. But after I realized a lot of people don't know about, Bayer is more a medicine company. And so, no, I took the logos, which are also using the brand power to improve the marketing. So some of the unbelievable slogans, miracles of science. Wow. So this is a work in progress for the garden. Here's the plants like the cornflowers resistance, horse tail. And for me, it was really kind of fun to do that because when I was young, I had to weed all the stuff, and now I was able to plant them and give them the power again. And also to have a different accents, because what I said in the beginning, the people are also deconnected with nature and have an artwork which is really growing, and you cannot really precisely say how it's going to be work out. And so, yeah, and that was it. Yeah, and here's a stone garden and green. And yeah, I think we have to think about our connection with nature, how much we are connected. And to understand the intelligence of plants, you really have to be connected, or to accept that it's part of life. We don't need, they don't need us, but we need nature to survive. Thank you.
Eva, thank you so much for leading us into the gardens, into adaptation of plants. And also I heard from you really an impact on justice, ecological justice, as you just said, right?
Yeah, that's very important, because I mean, we are taking everything for granted, and but we are depending on it, you know, and if we are heating up our gardens, then yeah, it's not a good, that's not good. And I think we also have to think about the generations who are coming.
Do we have any questions, thought strands? Andreas Bergmann.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation and for these wonderful examples. I was intrigued by your by the plants that you showed from your own garden, to which you gave the names of the natural historians of the 18th century.
I didn't give them, it was, they have been named by them.
So what I understood was that you actually now call your plants in the garden by the names of those researchers.
Yeah, but Mr. Forsythia is a botanical name, so it was named after Forsyth. And so I say now Mr. Forsyth because it's
yes.
Yeah.
No, so I'm intrigued by this gesture of naming and renaming, which I really like. So, but you're using William Forsyth as a name for that particular plant, for an individual plant?
No, he was himself who already named it. But with the IA, so it's in botanical name, it's Forsythia. Nobody makes a connection. And if I say Mr. Forsyth, then it's clear.
Yes, but when you say Mr. Forsyth to that plant, do you mean the species or that individual plant?
The individual plant, in my case.
So when you see a Forsythia somewhere else, you don't call it with Mr. Forsyth?
No.
Okay, no, so that's interesting. It's just interesting to understand. And because the gesture of naming is, of course, very important in our human command over nature. You know, it's in the Genesis of the Bible, for instance, where Adam being entitled by God to name the plants and the animals. And so what you're doing in this example is you're naming something by a name. So you're not giving it its own name, but you're giving it a name as a name.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you thought about this. I'm just, as you were speaking and showing the example, I was thinking this is really, it's a very interesting twist, because you're not even trying to give it a name, but you're just calling it by somebody else's name.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's a bit like a joke, but this ironic part. I mean, you cannot really possess a plant, and it's so, yeah, naming is also powerful, and I wanted to interrupt this power or make it, take it on the top, that it's getting absurd. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it also shows very nicely the nature culture when you name the plant after a human being again who was researching it.
I was very angry when I figured out this about the tea plant, because I mean, the Chinese had this plant forever, and then there's a German botanist coming and say, oh, now I call it after myself. And camel is so funny because you don't see the camel in the camellia. So it's also an animal name, and then it's so getting more and more ridiculous to have a camel.
There is, of course, this colonial aspect.
Yeah.
Naming, because indigenous communities had very often names that attributed to the relation between land, their body, medicinal context, and then came the so-called botanists from the West, and they just killed the local name, made it, ridiculized it even in botanical narratives. So it's a real conquest and colonial burdened narrative.
Especially in the dahlia, which is Mexican national plant, and they call it dahlia now too. And Mr. Dahl never has seen the dahlia. So,
You have a moment for one quick question from Jens?
Because it's exactly the distinction that Derrida gives and l'animal que donc je suis, the animal that therefore I am, to distinguish humankind and animal kind of the name that is the animal is deprived of, no. And there's even a pun in there. So there's the whole development about this, the naming of the name. And the name the animal is deprived by, and that we name. So just to wake up, I mean, it's great.
Thank you. Time is up for now, and it's a great honor to have the name of Rasa Smite and invite her now to the panel. And please, Rasa, come forward to us and join us. Rather the founder of RIXC, rather the media artist who is active since the 90s and is an admirable cultural innovator, researcher, teacher, artist, and a wonderful example of a human being and a European as well. Rather will be talking about art and naturally artificial intelligences. So she will make the link to art now for us. Okay. Just a second.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be a part of our amazing Naturecultures panel of and also thanks to my colleagues, Eva, Annette, Daria, and all other our members of recently founded art association, NAIA, which stands for Naturally Artificial Intelligence Art. And also thanks to Jens Hauser, because it was his he proposed a little bit to complicate all these relations between the nature and artificial technologies. So we had a conference in 2019, which was called Naturally Artificial Intelligence, here as a part of Ungreening Greenest Ungreen project conference here in 2019. And also in my own artworks and artistic practice, working together with RIXC and also with writers for our own art practice, and with RIXC with organizing the larger events and curating the exhibitions. We actually have been working with these topics like like gradually back and forth trying to find these relations between nature, culture, but particularly nature and technology for about quite a long time. And here, and here in this my 15-minute presentation, I will go through most interesting discoveries from also the books which I was reading now, starting a new project, this Plants Intelligences in Basel again, and also reflecting back upon our already did works, so just looking back, so what I think now. How I work, and how I really like to work together also with scientists. Even before reading the books, I really like a little bit to hear from them, really like to focus a little bit about the process. But then this Natasha Myers, which is an amazing ecofeminist, really like with many great ideas, which can inspire some of the perspectives, which could help us to put some splinters together also, I think, is something which is important because Natasha Myers is not only an anthropologist, but she's also has, like Eva, she also has a different background. She's also a biologist. And I think this is what makes really sense for me. So because in the understanding these relations between nature and culture, I think it's quite important also to go in depth into understanding how, for example, plant scientists actually look of how they study. And we see they're studying from the plant's relation to the soil, then the plants, how they relate to the atmosphere, and then how they relate to the ecosystem. So like three main like groups of what they study. So, and how Natasha Myers suggests they could be called, these are really practitioners, they could be called vegetal epistemologists, because after all, these are people who put their efforts in understanding what plants do and how plants can know something and how plants can get themselves involved in lives of the other organisms. So it's more about like vegetal sensorium. So for me also in my practice, it always has been important that I also do together with scientists. So here, for example, the new project, so we go to RIXC in Switzerland, we study organic farming, some practices, what they do there, and then I'm back home in Latvia, in Riga, in our countryside, these are growing tomatoes, but also this time some lupines, some seeds, what science. So we kind of try to experience what is this process. It looks also very different, even all the choices, even aesthetics, or the pots in which all the soil, so environment, so these very long days of Latvia. So this is all, you suddenly start to pay attention to very, very different aspects. So this is this field, just to mention, so one of the partners as an example, so which we work together. So of course they do so interesting things, like really encountering the plants physically. So this, I think, is the knowledge which can be asked, because this is a bit different than it's reflected in the books, and very different, of course, as the plant scientists themselves in the papers. So even Nobel Prize laureate Barbara McClintock is saying that for her, it's super important also really to start with the seedling, to be involved, and to kind of to finish it with it. Yeah. So this encountering, which is relational, is what makes sense. So that's my greenhouse. So where we grow all stuff. Yeah, and you, for example, I just went to this lupine field. We don't know this project in Basel. Yeah, you go to field and you don't realize so where this field could be located. So that's, for example, one of the most recent nuclear stations is there, and and then what is happening with these relations. So there are many things you can go through, because this is also what scientists are studying, these complex networks of interacting, but we often are disconnecting these human factors, just they are focusing more on this ecosystem, but I think we are all there with all our infrastructures very closely. Okay, so I skip it. So in short, the plant scientists suggest also if we want to work with plants and we want to understand them, meaning that also we want to understand their intelligence. So we should look at them, what plants think, kind of from the plants' perspective, because not plants always are lesser than us, because there are some processes also, like Dorian Sagan is saying, that plants are even better in some of the processes, yeah. So because they can do both, they can create the photosynthesis, but they can also breathe, because they are during the night, they also are releasing, they are consuming oxygen and releasing CO2. We are just used to teach in a school that they only produce oxygen, like mainly, let's say. So, but these processes are much, much more complex. And this is what I also, in our atmospheric forest, which was the outcome of EcoData 3-year research project also in Basel, in Tirwald, particularly in ancient alpine forests, which are just now dying out due drought. So where I learned that, overall, that these trees really are breathing. So these complexes could be, and the interaction with the atmosphere could be much more complex than even thought. And then I realized that also even scientists, they are not really aware of this massive scale, what these trees emit. So there is, of course, CO2, but they consume, they 20% even giving sometimes back, and they don't know why. And then there is oxygen. Then they know something about methane gases, but they know very little about all those volatile organic compounds, which is hundreds of gases which are like trees emitting. Well, this was paid my attention, and so then we later I will show a little bit the work if there will be time.
Yeah,
okay. I'm fast. So, and like Dorian Sagan, also other scientists whom Natasha Myers interviewed, so they are really insisting that the plants are masters of chemical synthesis. And instead of measuring plant intelligence up against human intelligence, if we will think about the thought, then they always, of course, will be lesser than us. But if we compare capacities, how plants are a genius of chemical engineering, so then they're probably in these processes, we can also recognize their specific intelligence. Yes, for example, this was also a part of atmospheric forest research. So besides that, we were visualizing the data provided by scientists about like the emissions of trees. I also did some field works, and I just went to the forest. I was trying to, I was smelling this, I was trying to experience something and understand why the smell comes out from these resins. So I collected them and I cooked them, I melted them, and I was providing a distillation. So I was trying also to continue kind of with my intervention to change also this plant's chemical reactions. So I've obtained some turpentine drops, and I've got also some colophoniums. And it's already. So I also recently did already a more staged performance after this first experiments now in an opening of Earthbound exhibition in Luxembourg and in Esch and in Basel. Okay, so plants feeling then would be very different phenomena, which would mean that actually we would also, as researchers and artists, so we should probably develop a different modes of also attention, how we approach them, how we encounter them, and also, of course, methodology, but also new ways of telling stories about what plants do and what plants know. Just getting a bit more philosophical, and also another author, Michael Marder, about plant thinking, because there are these different terms. So there's like decision making, how plants decide to grow or not to grow. Then is plant thinking, and about plant thinking is more written Michael Marder. And he's also trying to understand what is happening exactly when we as a human beings encounter the plants and how these two or more worlds intersect. And he suggests that this is when these three approaches could meet. So he calls them hermeneutic phenomenology, the construction, and weak thought. So, because he then later explains why these perspectives would allow these living beings, which are not us, to let them be. So, in saying it in other words, these three traditions would allow manifesting of the plants, them to manifest themselves and help relating to the world. So I think it's because this could also propose that this is a philosophical infrastructure. So how we could see this uninterrupted connection between plant thinking and human thought. And just quickly, just going summarizing and putting to
3 moments.
Yes, thank you. Exactly, I'm in the right moment. So our project. So we started with Talk to Me. So it was one of our first projects in 2011, where we were not sure how we can actually encounter the plants. We were not interested in those physiology of plants, just to making these clicks of water pumping through, audible or visible. We were more interested in the social relations, so how people encountered them. So we created the interface asking people to deliver the messages to the plants. And so there were about 20,000 messages we collected during 2 years, 5 exhibitions, and then we created the point clouds and this social network analysis tool we used also to understand which were the words, how people approach the plants. So they really, you plant beautiful love. So extremely positive. So that was one experiment. So the other one was biotricity. We did a pond battery particular. So where we were encountering living bacteria producing those electrical signals. So that this was also another example of how we try to work together, and also all these relations are always complex, because kind of we can connect electrodes, we can take out and in a chain of and put them into the chain. And even in Futurium Museum is this installation in Berlin available now in a permanent exposition. And we are even powering the clock. So this digital clock is working. Sometimes it's precise, sometimes it's with some delay. But because it's run by these biological organisms, which are bacteria, but then once I've heard an interesting question, but maybe ecosystem needs these electrons. Even if bacteria don't need them because they release them as a free, but maybe ecosystem does need them. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. And then atmospheric forests. So this was already like a larger study about these specific relations between all the chemistry of the trees, how they produce the resin, how they emit, how they influence the atmosphere. And the intent was we created this virtual reality immersive installation. The intent was to show this complexity of all this question, also the scale of like forest ecosystem and the climate change. So that there are so many factors even that it's not so easy. It can be solved like by deforestation, just solving deforestation or forestation issues, that there's much more complex, this interesting system between the terrestrial and atmospheric chemistry also. Okay, so I finish with this.
Thank you, Radha, for this insightful. Diving into ecosystems with sensors. And I'm really curious what your visions are for Karlsruhe, for the ecosystem of Karlsruhe, where you will be sensing and making projects together. And maybe we are running really on time now. Is there one question for Rasa, or maybe we could, oh yeah, this one,
Just one
yes.
question. Did you maybe make experiments how plants react to different people? Because I noticed that plants react different to different plants. If someone who grow them, for example, dies or leaves, some of them died or something like that.
No, not really. No, not so really. Because we actually did a very mediated communication, because we were using computer voice reading the messages sent by the people. So there definitely were not natural vibrations, but there were technological ones involved, kind of a messages delivered to the plants. So but there were really funny discovery in Ventspils. There was a really large space where we did. So we put one computer voice in a female voice, another one male voice. We put two pots. One was with the beans, so who were growing, and I intentionally tried, like secretly to plant the better plants for the more thick, more beautiful under the female voice. But the result was that very sexistic result, because this they grow extremely high, almost 3 meters high, but those with the female voice, they went going like a tiny and very to all, yeah, dispersed, and the other ones, the male voice, which were much more weak plants, so they went really solid. No, but that's totally unscientific. They were really like one big, like column.
Good. Let's now have Blanca Jimenez from Karlsruhe dial in, because Karlsruhe has recently become the city of media art, UNESCO City of Media Art, and Blanca Jimenez, she is from the Department of Cultural Affairs in Karlsruhe. She's a curator and also project manager, and the Young NAIA Association has already some connections to artworks and art projects and pilots in the city connected to the UNESCO City of Media Art. Hi Blanca, can you hear us well?
Yes, I can hear you. You can hear me too. Great. I will just share my screen first. Here. Okay, you can see it. I mean, I will just press on presentation mode, then I will probably don't see you anymore. So it would be great if you can just confirm me that you can see it right.
You can see it very well.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you, Annette, very much for your introduction, and also for the opportunity at this point to present Karlsruhe as a city of media arts. First of all, I would like to start with some facts about Karlsruhe for those of you who don't know the city yet. The city of Karlsruhe is one of the fastest growing cities in Germany, with about 312,000 inhabitants.
Blanca,
It is,
Blanca,
yes?
you need to re-share the screen, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, share the whole screen.
Do you? But now you see the whole presentation, no?
We see not the presentation mode yet.
No? Okay.
Presentation of the full screen.
The whole screen.
Yeah, we should presentation.
Ask to share the desktop.
Yeah, share the desktop, not PowerPoint, but the actual desktop. That's the first option in the top left.
This I can do, because I can just here. Okay, now you see me, you see the whole screen.
No, we just, or maybe it's a very narrow screen. Can you now open PowerPoint?
Yes, I have Zoom and the presentation, and I have the screen shared, and I see me and Annette and the presentation.
We only see Zoom, we don't see the presentation.
Okay. And like this, you don't see the presentation?
Yeah, I think it's fine if like this, right?
But if I click on
Yeah,
You can see it.
we get stuck in the PowerPoint, and you see that also in PowerPoint. So I think you can just stay here in PowerPoint, and we can see this. This is okay.
Okay, I can do it a bit bigger so that you see it better.
Yeah. Can you now go to the second slide on the left? Yeah, let's do it like this.
Yes, like this. Okay. So yeah, and then we continue here as Karlsruhe, the creative city in the heart of Europe. As I said, exactly. So it's one of the fastest growing cities in Germany with about 312,000 inhabitants. So right here. As I said, it is located in the federal state of Baden-Württemberg in southwest Germany, bordering France. And so to say, Karlsruhe is located in the heart of Europe with quite short distances to other European and German cities. As the seat of the highest German courts, Karlsruhe is called City of Law. For this reason, people of Karlsruhe feel a very special commitment to human and civil rights. Karlsruhe is also a city with a rich cultural heritage, as it was the former residence city of the old state of Baden. The three major cultural institutions of the city have grown out of Grand Ducal roots: the Baden State Theatre, the Kunsthalle, and the Baden State Museum. And more recently, in 2019, Karlsruhe was designated by the UNESCO as a creative city of media arts. The strategy is to foster creativity, diversity, and networking in a democratic balance by means of media technology and media arts. And since 2020, media art is actually an essential core element of the city's identity. Of course, the ZKM Center for Art and Media played a major role in achieving this. With the foundation of the ZKM in 1989, the most important milestone was laid for the future UNESCO Creative City of Media Arts. The ZKM is a unique cultural institution worldwide, and it is the most important partner when it comes to development and perception as a UNESCO Creative City of Media Arts, both in matters of strategic orientation and in the planning and implementation of projects. Part of Karlsruhe's application to become a UNESCO Creative City of Media Arts was the development of an action plan for the years 2020 to 2023, which was developed under the leadership of the Department of Cultural Affairs with the support of more than 40 local institutions from various fields, from the cultural and creative industries, from research and science, from digital scene, as well as urban societies. As a strong IT location, Karlsruhe has an excellent and wide-ranging research of universities for a city of its size. And numerous startups work here, artists have studios and workshops, events, exhibitions, and presentations takes place regularly. As previously stated, Karlsruhe is since 2019 a member of the UNESCO's Creative Cities Networks, the UCCN. The UCCN was founded in 2004 to encourage collaboration with and between cities that have identified creativity as a strategic factor for sustainable urban development. Currently, 295 cities belong to this network, working towards a common goal: to put creativity and cultural industries as the center of their local development plans and to work together actively on an international level. From the 295 cities, 22 are UNESCO cities of media arts. In the media arts cluster, the cities work together intensively, foster interdisciplinary exchange, share their knowledge and experience, as well as outstanding media art and methods for developing artistic projects. In this context, the network relationships between the city's cultural and creative scenes are also being improved. As an example, please let me present you the international project City to City. This project was launched in 2020 by 10 members of the Media Arts Cluster in response to the pandemic to support media artists in challenging times. Under the motto Play, the successful project was continued in 2021 as a cooperation between 30 media arts cities. Artists were invited to develop their visions for a digital work of art, highlighting the impact of human activity on the planet, the importance of arts and empathy for a more responsible use of technology, as well as how technology can support in finding solutions to global challenges. The results were 5 media artworks, both in 2020 and 21, based on a 3-month artistic online collaboration between artists from the participating media art cities. City to City was awarded the Best International Project Prize in 2021 by the Fondazione Sant'Agata, one of the most important Italian foundations dedicated to cultural innovation as a factor in economic development. The award aims to give visibility and recognition to projects within the UNESCO area that present themselves for sustainable development in the cultural, economic, and communal environment, and that are in line with the goals of the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations by providing the promote active participation and the development of cooperation networks. The ZKM also cooperates with research institutions worldwide and other media art cities, for example, with its exhibition Writing the History of the Future, signature works of the singular ZKM media art collection that was shown at the Gwangju Museum of Art in the UNESCO Creative City of Media Arts of Gwangju in Korea. From December 2021 to April 2022, or the recent adaptation of the exhibition Biomedia at the Centre des Arts in Enghien-les-Bains in France. And here you can see in the picture of the exhibition Biomedia in Enghien-les-Bains. Also locally, numerous events and platforms underline Karlsruhe's importance as a city of media arts, and I would like to highlight some of them. The Urban Media Art Festival Seasons of Media Arts brings media art into public space, free of charge and accessible to everyone. The festival is a collaboration between the City of Karlsruhe's Department of Cultural Affairs and the ZKM, and is one of the central activities in the 2020-2023 Action Plan as a UNESCO Creative City of Media Arts. The Media Art Festival addresses issues of a global nature, such as the climate crisis, technological change, or democracy in the age of social media. It presents digital, interactive, and virtual art, transforming the city of Karlsruhe into a stage for innovative, collaborative, and networked media art, which is open to all. And here in the pictures, you can see some of the media artworks shown during the past 3 years in public spaces in Karlsruhe. So many of these works were actually funded by the city with a unique program, and it has already talked a bit about it. Our funding program for media arts and international network activities is another major activity of our action plan and an important instrument for supporting the local art scene and their media art projects once a year. So far, 3 editions have already taken place, each of which has been granted 100,000 euros. Since 2020, 36 projects have been selected and a total of 57 local artists, groups, and institutions have been supported. And actually at today's panel, we will hear just right after me about 2 projects, Sense Us and Post-Ideen, that were funded within the UNESCO City of Media Arts Karlsruhe Project Support Program for Media Art. Since the 300th city's birthday in 2015, the Schlosslichtspiele Karlsruhe have thrilled tens of thousands of visitors to the Schlossplatz every summer. The event, which shines far beyond the city's borders, has contributed greatly to Karlsruhe becoming the first German city to hold the City of UNESCO Creative City of Media Arts. Because I haven't said it yet before, but Karlsruhe is the first German city to acknowledge this title. The 170-meter wide facade of Carlsware's Baroque Palace becomes an oversized canvas for impressive projection mappings by internationally renowned media artists, as well as a stage for local and upcoming talent. The last edition took place this summer with around 250,000 visitors. Finally, I would like to mention our website, cityofmediaarts.de, as our central communication tool, both in German and in English. All information about the City of Media Arts, events, calls for entries, artists, contact persons, etc., can be found there. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Taking us into Karlsruhe, its vibrant media city. And Daria Miller, who is a curator from Karlsruhe, working at ZKM, very experienced in creating large exhibition on contemporary media art and historic media art. She will be dialing in right now as well, because she will be introducing her pilot project together, created with Radar, which is part of Blanca's project base. Hi, Daria, can you hear us?
Hi, Annette. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Everything well? Okay, yes. Great. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to introduce today also the pilot project of NAIA in Karlsruhe. And I will also share my presentation. It's quite basic, but I think to have some visuals probably might be good. So just a moment, I will start to share. So, can you see it now in full mode?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Perfect. So the title of my presentation today is Sensors, Augmented Explorations in Karlsruhe. Basically, the project is about sensing and experiencing cultural sites of Karlsruhe, and it joins already, I think, quite well the topics that were raised up today. Also, it's part of the UNESCO City of Media Art Cultural Support Program, and somehow it puts also focus on the city and on different points of connection in the city between nature and culture, but also, of course, between different actors of the cultural scene in the city. Just also to show you once again probably the most imposant architectural monument in the city. That's the Castro Palace, and that's something that basically shapes also the image of the city, and it connects quite well to what Eva was telling today about the Baroque garden and Baroque way of thinking. So it's this Karlsruhe as a city was founded in 1715 and is really shaped by this Baroque image and Baroque structure, and somehow this power is really in the center of the city. The streets of the city, main streets, are shaped as a fan that have its origin at the palace and then go to the outskirts. So basically, this Baroque structure is still shaping also the perception of the city, and of course also with the architecture, also some ponds and some parks were laid in the city, and this is somehow also becomes very very impressive also image of the city, but somehow our idea is also to see like how we can perceive and how we can relate to also to the nature in the city, and what is in general also this nature in the city, in the urban environment. This is one image of Karlsruhe, but this is, for example, quite different image. It's an interesting practice of allotment gardens in the city. In Germany, it's quite widespread that we have this little gardening associations that might also be located directly in the city, like this one. And several years ago, for example, they found out that this particular allotment garden was very poisoned and was built basically on the toxic toxic grounds, on the toxic soil that was still poisoned by the rubbish or war rubble coming from the Second World War. So they decided to pull it completely down and to build like new, I think, sports playground on this lot. So all the gardens were pulled down, and you see like here some photographs of this process, and also on the right hand side a photograph of quite interesting, because it's like pumpkin or like cultural plant basically that takes over again over like wild or like wild grazes. So it's like interesting also combination. What is here nature, what is culture? It's like super confusing, and that's somehow also part of our project to investigate like how culture and nature are of course very much entangled, intertwined, and cannot be really separated from each other, also in the urban environment. So the idea is that we will work with augmented and mixed reality, and we'll explore these natural cultural sites in Karlsruhe, and we will also commission around five new works that will introduce this more than human perspective as the most inclusive and least anthropocenic. We are thinking to work with young artists. That's also a mission of NAIA, to connect different actors, to give also stage to young media artists in Karlsruhe, also to graduates or like still students of the state School of Art and Design, for example, but also to include expat artists, and also, for example, Ukrainian artists that have recently come to Karlsruhe as a result of the onslaught of Russia on the Ukraine. So here just some visuals also to introduce the artist. We're in conversation with Young-Yeon Lee, who is student at the HFG at the School of Art and Design in Karlsruhe, with Isabelle Munich, with Anna Manankina, who is artist working with digital technologies and also with augmented reality from Ukraine, and she's actually a scholarship holder at the ZKM. And with Christina Winke, who is also a graduate student at the moment at the HFG, and will also participate in the panel on terrestrial coexistence today. So the project also aims to extend its local natural cultural experiences and to discuss more than human discourses in a wider international context. And at the finissage of the project,
Did you say some keywords?
Framework. Yeah, perhaps what I haven't said yet, the census basically is an application that has been developed in Riga, RIXC, and it's happened in the pandemic and post-pandemic time, and it's a platform to share artworks in augmented and mixed reality. It will happen via Google Store or via App Store. So it's technology that is available for almost for everyone who has a smartphone today. And we are thinking of investigating these local stories and of thinking with artists how these stories and how storytelling as method can contribute to creation of these new artworks showing the augmented city and its stories that visitors or like inhabitants of the city can experience while navigating through the city. So here, that's the last slide of my presentation showing the augmented reality app. Concerning the timing, so we plan to start the project in April. It will be the start of the exhibition, and till April we will have a production phase, and we'll be in dialogue with artists and with different communities in Karlsruhe to make it happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Daria. Do we have any questions from the audience to Daria and her project?
Just a quick comment, because those who are still in Riga, and if you walk to National Arts Museum, just behind the museum, at the moment is also this augmented, this is our first pilot project with the Sense as Art. You can download it from App Store, and you can access. There are 4 artworks in a park available. So.
Okay, Daria, thank you. You will stay with us, and you will also be moderating the afternoon panel.
Yeah, thank you, Annette. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask.
And we'll move on to Gerardo Nolasco-Rojas. He is also a Karlsruhe-based artist, and he has also a project. He already realized it at the UNESCO City of Media Art in Karlsruhe, and it's about apples. You know, in the beginning today, we were thinking about holistic shapes and metaphors of totality, and just think about the apple, the perfect shapes of apple. And he will introduce us to his project Post-Eden, from humanization to post-humanism. Gerardo, welcome to our panel.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Annette, for the introduction, and thanks, Raza, for letting me present my project in this conference. Well, I am an artist from Mexico that I'm living in Karlsruhe. And yes, like Annette said, I will present this project that I'm working on. Before, well, I will share also my screen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see now my presentation.
Perfectly, yes, thank you.
Okay, so first, before I will show some of my images, I will read a little of the concept. And well, this project is part of a big research that I call Once Upon a Time. And this is a long-term project divided in phases. This research engages with the possibilities of art to imagine possible futures. Through the research, I approach the territory as a living archive by analyzing the symbiosis of organic and inorganic agents and their environments in historical, contemporary, and speculative contexts. I aim to investigate instances in which these symbiotic systems has been used and abused through history, and discuss the ramification of this in political imaginaries. Since our ancestors began to interact with their surroundings, a naturalistical intelligence emerged, and this has diverged from one territory to another. Howard Gardner defines this intelligence as the ability to interact, identify, classify, or manipulate elements of the environment, objects, animals, or plants. But for the biologist Leon Gorison, she said that we need to go towards a natural intelligence, and I quote, "So we can learn to become life-friendly and self-renewing right where we are, and transform our current degenerative value systems into a regenerative one, enhancing the world through benign innovations." And I close the quotation. Gorison proposed that natural intelligence offers a whole lens to look art, science, and technology that lead us to a natural inspired innovations to develop other territories. Territories transform through time and space. There are dynamic systems that establish the relationships between the organic and inorganic agents coexistent within them. The Mayans uses the concept loom to refer not only to the territorial space and the natural elements of the landscapes, what the West calls nature, but also to its social, artistic, religious, and political institutions, what the West called culture. In the Loom, the nature is intertwined with culture. That is to say, the space is not natural or cultural, but natural and cultural. In Western thought, rigid dualistic boundaries still prevail: body, soul, black and white, good and evil, and so on. But Mayan thought embraces interlinkages and simultaneities. In the Popol Vuh, one of the secret books of the Mayans, humans exist in the same plane as rocks, plants, and animals. This is a different perspective to the anthropocentric thought, where we are the center and measure of everything. Humans are above nature and can therefore possess it. For the Mayans, we are part of the whole. The human population coexists with the vegetable, animal, mineral, and meteoric populations in a biological, historical, and cultural exchange, conceived as a symbiosis between ages consistent in this same territory. The aim of the project is to explore the Mayan concept of Loom in order to understand, think, imagine from another perspective the entanglements of our species with other different agents whom we share the same time and space. Well, now the project that I'm presenting is called Post-Ident. And Post-Ident follow the story of three main characters. Let me show you some, sorry. Like Post-Ident follows the story of three characters, Awiti, Brass, and Alan, from three different historical periods: hominization, humanism, and post-humanism. In this fable, the apple emerges as a symbolic element of desire and is the main axis that intertwines the stories and reflects upon the systems that emerge between nature with its organic and inorganic agents, humans and technology in the distinct looms. Through its history, the apple tree has developed a diversity of symbiosis with various species, and it did not begin to evolve through human domestication, unlike other foods such as cereals and legumes. Apples are evolutionary adaptations for seed dissemination. The key to understanding this evolution lies on the understanding which animals ate them in the past. In our species, apples, besides being food, have been grafted into social imaginaries in symbolic ways. Its meaning is different from place to place. In other mythologies representing mortality, for the Celts, eating it gives wisdom and strength, and in the Catholic religion is the fruit that was forbidden. Also, the apple has different symbolism in different places. In every story in which appears, it fulfills the desires to those who eat it. Well, in this project that I am not precisely working with nature per se, so it's more working with the concepts and to try to introduce these concepts to the public that are not used to it. No? So this project, this image that you are seeing here is a project that I present in the last year in Seasons of Media Art, and it's the Post-Ident, and it's an augmented reality. And in this project, I am telling the story of these characters that I present on this research, and I presented like some time of between like the use of technology with robotics, also with all of course digitally, and I put plants in different parts of the city in different gardens. I put apple trees and in this augmented reality, the robot that you can see is telling the stories of these three characters and try to introduce the concept of how we live like entangled with nature, and how we are like the perception that when we became like humans with the hominization, and when we became like kind of humans with the humanism and the colonization of thoughts around the world. And it finished the story with the post-humanism, telling also about how now we related to nature and the new possibilities to think about now with climate change and all these things that worry us. So this is the main character of the project, to show like this type of relations between humans and nature, and try to understand it via the concept of the looms of the Mayas. And well, that's it. I don't know if you have any questions regarding the, well, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gerardo, maybe you want to expand a little bit on your concept of post-Eden and the metaphor of the apple or apple trees, because it's in our Western and beyond Western cultural tradition. It's so rich in semantics. It's so much about nature culture. If you think about anything, you think about the apple, and not only because of the Bible or cities being called the Big Apple or the first globe being called the Earth's apple. You know, there's such a rich history. So where do you enter this history in your project?
Yes, well, when I started because my idea was to research about this kind of like the process to being human and then the posthumanism, and then reading a lot of stories and fables, I realized that the apple is very important, and also very important in Western society. You know, the apple, it has many stories in many parts of culture. And that's the project is called like this post-Eden, because it's like after Eden, no? That we were expelled, like we became like humans when we were expelled from the paradise. So this is why I take more or less the idea, and I try to, because this project is divided in three chapters, and the first chapter is talking about the Garden of Eden and how we became humans in the sense of like when we were like, also there is a theory, the theory of the Rift Valley, that we suppose like humans were living in African forests, and then was the tectonic plates forming this valley, and some monk apes were like staying in one part and other in the other part, and because the food was like finishing, they were expelled from paradise. No, so and then I try to mix this kind of Catholic, but also with this kind of evolutionary, that in kind of like to mix like this kind of like not only like because of the Catholic, but also like this kind of evolutionary, you know, that they in some point they don't mix, but and in the end they could mix together in this kind of concept. So then I started to see about the symbolism of the apple. Also in the Renaissance, it was very important, is the Garden of the Hesperides. It was very important, the apple, and it was kind of a point of reference of many humanists to use like this kind of symbolisms and everything like with the apple. It was related also, the Adam and Eve was starting to relate it in the humanism with the Renaissance. And then I finished, and then the last chapter is also with like kind of like with the Garden of the Apple Park, in the Apple company have a apple garden. So I finished with this, and I started talking about the way of like posthumanism is related to this kind of systems with the apple. So and in the end, the apple is kind of the link between this kind of like that links the stories of these three like characters like going around and telling concepts about how we can share and how we can be with nature, no? And like the loom, no? Like the loom of the Mayas, that I'm trying to perceive this way of like the fruit as a fruit, that we use it like food, but also we have this kind of symbiotic symbolism with them, that we use the fruit, no? And also the first I also was very interesting, because as I read, the apple is like, well, not only the apple, the fruits are some plants that they were not domesticated by humans, no, since the beginning, no. So they start to evolve when they were interacting with other species, no? And also like in that time when they started to evolve, they were like many big mammals that they were eating. So in the beginning, these fruits were small. So they evolved because of the big mammals. So they started to produce bigger apples, no? Of course, nowadays, humans, of course, we start also to adapt these kind of apples and that we have other types of small apples. But I think it's too long, my answer, but it's like this.
Thank you. Are there any thought strands in the audience to connect to Gerardo's work? Resistance and apples and.
Could you expand the aspect of robotics in this project?
Yeah. Did you hear the question?
No, I didn't hear it.
I guess in the audience asked if you could expand on the robotic aspect in your project, because we saw a robot as augmented reality in your project shortly.
Yes, that in the project, because when I was talking about the in posthumanism, also I researched this kind of two types of posthumanism, no? That is the transhumanism idea and the posthumanism critical theory. That in some sense they are opposed, no? In one, they see more like this kind of like the intertwine with technology, like the transhumanists, they saw it that it's kind of a humanism, like humanism plus, no? So it's completely diverse from the posthumanist critical theory. So in this sense, in this sense, I am trying to show this kind of 2 points of view in my artwork, so that the viewer can decide, like to see the points of view and make his own critical thought about one point of view of being this type of humans related more to technology and to enhance with this kind of robotics, and or the other hand that is going more to nature and to intertwine with other non-humans, no? So I try to oppose them. So in my augmented reality, you can see the robot that is also telling stories, but also you can see some natural elements like a monkey or some rabbits, also to try to make these kind of connections. So that's why the link with the robot and the project.
Do we have more questions? You know, Gerardo, I was wondering how your augmented reality application is tied into your broader work in this project. If you have virtual reality app, then it's often a one-to-one, a human connection with the work. And as the whole project is focusing on post-human and human, there could also be more like a collective aspect. So you have your drawings in the gallery exhibition, I believe, together with the augmented reality app. Are you also envisioning talking also about NAIA and our visions for the association and how it can grow and reach out to Karlsruhe? Are you also thinking about some participatory aspects of your work, like reaching out to youngsters and elder people in Karlsruhe?
Yes, it's the idea of the project, because now I started to make in the production. Like last year I start, because it was this research I started in 2011, and I just finished it like 2 years ago. So last year I started the project with the Seasons of Media. I start to present this kind of augmented reality, and the idea now is like, yes, we collaborated with artists in Karlsruhe, and also to like this augmented reality and trying to be more like interaction with more of the city of Carlsware. Now that was the last year that this attempt with augmented reality, trying to interact with the gardens, because the idea was to put these artworks in the gardens of Karlsruhe. And also this augmented reality was also in the gardens of the ZKM, that they have also some apples. So the idea was to like interact these natural apples with the artificial apples, and also for me, like, well, like augmented reality is kind of well, not new media, but it's recently like started to developing this augmented reality, and for me, kind of very nice because it enhances like this kind of, because and in the end, the augmented reality is kind of intertwined with reality, no? In the difference, like with virtual reality, that you need to put your glasses, and in the end, you are like kind of isolated not in the virtual way, because of course you can communicate and see, but with the real space. And for me, the augmented reality is like a perfect match, like between like this kind of like you can still be in the reality, but you have like some virtual content. And for me, it's kind of important because, well, the public can see like more content with the telephone, with their cell phones, and they can approach different type of communication and different type of another type of content that me as an artist I want to show in the project. And of course, like it's like the next step is working more with nature. So now to try to working with nature, no, because now it's more like virtual, but that is also trying to find another ways to, like the apple. No? So now I'm still thinking in this kind of artworks to really starting working with nature and the apple and the apple as another elementary part more than that virtually.
The real material.
Exactly.
Thank you, Gerardo.
No, thank you very much, and thank you all for listening to my project.
From the audience, are there any questions to the NAIA panel per se? To Eva, can you also reconnect to Daria and to Blanca? Are there any thought strands? Andreas?
Yes, I have a general question that you must have been thinking about and also will come as a surprise. That's asking about the contradiction that the technologies that you're using or that you're thinking about are bringing into this nature culture encounter, or what the role is. Maybe I should put it like that. What is the role of technology when, you know, the anthropocentric and modernist system which you are critiquing is predicated on those very technologies, and the smartphone is like the apotheosis of the modernism. So, you know, when you do work like Gerardo with augmented reality, how do you reconcile those different interests or things pulling in different directions?
Right, thank you for that wonderful question. So, do you want to start, Rana?
No.
Let's have some input from everyone. So maybe I jump ahead. Yeah, if you have technical tools, for one, you can say, well, they are always man-made, they are human-made, they reach out to have more senses, to have a larger sensorium, right? So the technical apparatus, for once, is firstly based on the human perspective, as we know it through media art. Now, how can we apply sensors, technical tools, to become more aware, to use these as sensors? Well, of course, we have all kinds of technical imagery and sound technology to have all the artificial data. Yeah, we are processing in art. And because it's the second world, a separate world, which is now through augmented technology and so on, brought together, fused or not fused as one. Of course, we have the hybrid discussion and so on. But I think what it is that through art, we are surrounded by all these technologies. Yes. And but we also, as humans, always have to recalibrate. How do we use this technology and how can we live without it? I think, especially if we talk to younger artists today, they are so much aware. Of course, you call them the digital savvies and the post digitals in a way, but they are so aware what can be done with technology and where do they leave their technology again at home, and where is well, where are the human and the non-human connections? I think there is a huge awareness than maybe still in our generation. That's how I monitor it in a way. I'm not sure, but it's not an apotheosis of technology as we work with digital tools. It's just always finding the right measurements, the recalibration, the remediation, the distance to nature and culture, I would say. Jens.
No, I'm just coughing.
Oh, sorry. Was raising your hand. Yeah, maybe unrelated, but just going back to the apple in a kind of awkward way. I was just coming back from Jerusalem, and I was driving from Jerusalem to Shepard with a taxi. It was always playing ABBA, and I said it's normal because there's ABBA in Shabbat. It was Shabbat. There was no public transportation. There was normal. So there is NAIA in a certain way, and there's an NAIA that we decided for the 2019 conference. And Raza and I had discussing about when we were deconstructing and ungreening greenness, how to also negating AI in a certain way. So the N was also added to this as a negation of that way. And it came at a political point when Ars Electronica tried also to reshuffle this hybrid art category that was very successful into artificial life and artificial intelligence category. So the discussion that we had at this time was to say, what about all the bias that is very embedded in this development of AI technologies, and how, from our perspective of enlarging the sensory modalities, there's a possibility to hijack this. So this is where the N came in when we designed the conference in 2019. So it's interesting how far this art really, I mean, encompasses the enlargement of this mesoscopic bubble, and this is maybe to answer also related to Andreas' question, and how far we can create awareness, empathy, and agency, and not to just enlarge the mesoscopic bubble within which phenomenological considerations are still rooted by touch, smell, and other vectors that go beyond the output trust. But this is certainly part of it, but also working on scales, you know. And I think a lot of projects that you have been presenting are also dealing with scales and using this kind of techno-cultural hybrids in the sense of enlarging scales. So I would like to ask you, maybe within this NAIA and NAIA kind of paradigm, and how far the scales play a role from the microscope to the macroscope.
Yes, maybe we can memorize this question and have Daria come in, and maybe Daria has also an idea to the scaling.
Yeah, I just wanted also to react to the first question and also the idea of scaling also because, for example, how can we see bacteria? We cannot see bacteria with our eyes. We can see them only with media, with devices, with microscope. And I think in this sense, we also as NAIA, we tend to see the technology as means to better understand the relationships between species, to see what is the relationship between nature culture through this lens of media. So it's not like a hype, but it's more, we would like to use it more as a tool. Today, everybody has or almost everybody has a smartphone. So why not to use it also in another way to attract attention to the environment, to attract attention also to these stories that are behind our usual scenes, behind this city and behind the environment of the city. And sensors, it's also the title itself, of course, it's appealing to its Latin to the Latin word senses as a feeling, as cognition, as perception, in the sense of that we can also through technology augment our senses to reach to these topics that are not visible and not perceivable with our natural senses, so to speak. So just this kind of thought probably also about different scales.
Thank you, Raza.
Yeah, answering to both questions because okay, augmented reality and iPhones, of course, this is like a representational technology, how you represent the art. but there are also technologies which I'm even more interested in, and which you use in research, which scientists also are using in research, because these are the many sensing technologies. For example, these are near infrared cameras where already intentionally there has been put an effort in kind of see what animals see, or see what plants could see. Yeah, for example, this near infrared cameras are especially seeing the spectrum which we don't see. This is this near infrared, so which means if they are reflecting back a good amount of light, means that the plants are healthy, and so on. So they are all lasers, yeah, based technologies. So they are also showing like a state or how of the feeling of the plants, for example. So I think this is very interesting, and also scale comes also exactly into this, because we have been working with bacteria which we don't see, we just can think of them, and we have been working about this atmospheric forest, visualizing the emissions which really go very quickly, very far. They are responsible for creating the clouds. And so they are going into the even upper levels of atmosphere. And so all this scale, I think it's for artists, it's very, very interesting and challenging to work with these scales, and without technologies, we just can't do. And that's why we try to we will continue to keep thinking, yes, how with all this bias, all these contradictions, which technology and modernized society has brought to us today. So how we can find our way of using them, especially in exploring the nature.
Well, I would like to come back also. For me, augmented reality is only a vehicle, because I'm coming more from the roots of nature. And so, of course, answering also to Jens' question, it's a scale, and it's also timeless, because if I work with plants, it's only a certain amount of time I have, and I can't move them. So with augmented reality, it makes possible to show it different, or like the next project I'm doing about paper consumption in trees. I can plant trees in an area in marketplace of Carlsware, for example, that I cannot really do it. So I can use this vehicle for imagination about that. But yeah, and I think NAIA is a nice center for mixing all these different approaches and coming together from different directions.
Yeah, maybe kind of following the strand of scale, and on a micro level, I just wanted to leave a comment with Geraldo with his apples. I'm sure he might know of it, but with Joe Davis and his project Malus Ecclesia, where he is tapping into this apple as a tree of knowledge, and also commenting on how we are thinking about storing information into DNA. So his Malus Ecclesia project was to extract X amount of information from Wikipedia sites and insert it into DNA, and putting it back into an apple. So that kind of the conceptual idea of the project was that you could maybe you can eat your way to knowledge, or it's a project that might be interesting to look into. Maybe you already know about
nourishing knowledge.
A small comment on what has been said about that you need technology to see the microbial. That is actually not true.
Yes.
There are possibilities to see within a bacterial species that is a reflection of what is present, potentially pathological in the environment. So that's an ancient technique by using phytochemicals. It's shaman practice that is very old and passed on through generations.
Have you seen the
I have been in contact with people who have been able to do that. There's a book that I will show it in my talk tomorrow. There's a book that talks about this entirely from also a scientific point of view.
And just a very short comment for apples, because This is because we here have very different even notion about the apples, so it's back to post-Soviet nostalgia. So a couple, like about also 10 years ago, we organized a project called as a part of renewable energy series, which we organized here in Latvia. So we organized Apple Think event because when we were searching for resources which could be available here in Latvia, as the fall comes, I always had this association. I remember all my childhood always my father, either apples are not enough or they are too many and then they are rotting. And apples were everywhere. They were even along all villages, along the main roads. They were planting. The Soviet cohorts were planting apples. Apple trees were everywhere. Apples with nonsense, everywhere. Apple juice, not of course. In the shops was only available birch juice with some sugar, and that's what it. Yeah, but and I thought, but maybe this could be a big resources. And still, we organized an Iceput and said this first Apple Think event, and they took it over, and they still continue every year to do a local event with this apples, and then everybody, all local people come with their knowledge, their machines, how to make juice, then they share how to make wine and so on. So this became like a local event. Thank you. Okay.
I think it's a nice moment to wrap up the panel. Thank you all contributors. Thank you Blanca. Thank you Daria in Karlsruhe. Thank you Gerardo. Thank you. Thank you everyone. We will take a 10-minute break, take a breath, and then reconvene at 2 o'clock in 2 split parallel sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, for those.